What's the most effed up thing a family member of yours has done? My dad's a consummate prankster. His crowning achievement in college has since become illegal in 2 states. Step 1. He and several buddies go to a Cadillac dealership at 5 o'clock on a Friday. This was before credit cards and automatic banking, by the way. Step 2. They wrote a check for the asking price of one of the shiny new models and drove off with it. Step 3. They saw the car at a used Cadillac dealership across town. Step 4. The used dealer calls the new dealer and tells him that the car was sold with the dealer plates still on and the price tag still in the window. Step 5. New dealer figures that the check the kids wrote is going to bounce, so he calls the cops. Step 6. My dad and his friends spend the weekend in jail. Step 7. The bank's open Monday morning. The check doesn't bounce. Step 8. My dad and his friends sue the dealers in the state for wrongful imprisonment and get a settlement of thousands of dollars more than the cost of the car. Basically, the plan was to seem as shady as possible and get wrongfully arrested for it. They had the lawyer set up before they bought the car. Dad used his share to pay for his and another friend's tuition for the year.
My tone-deaf mother-in-law keeps pressuring my wife and I to try for another baby after our miscarriage, so I finally had to draw the line. From the moment we shared the news of our loss, my mother-in-law has been pushing for us to move on and try again soon. It's like she's completely disregarded our grief. She's always been a bit overbearing, but this crossed a line. At first, it was the little comments. It's so important to have siblings close in age, or you can't give up after just one miscarriage. She'd even go so far as to say things like, "I'm sure you'll have better luck this time," as if it were as simple as trying again and everything would magically work out. I tried brushing it off, thinking maybe she didn't realize how insensitive she sounded. But then right in front of us at a family dinner, she said, "You should start trying again this weekend. You can't waste time." The entire table fell silent. My wife looked like she was about to cry and I could feel my blood boiling. This was not just an ignorant comment, but also an invasion of our emotional space. We hadn't even processed what had happened, and here she was, trying to push us into a future we weren't ready for. The tension was unbearable. I'd been trying to be patient for my wife's sake, but watching her get so visibly upset each time her mother made these comments was breaking me. It felt like mother-in-law was turning something deeply personal and painful into a one-size-fits-all solution that she somehow believed was just helpful advice. Every conversation felt like we were being suffocated by her expectations. My wife was caught in the middle and she didn't want to upset her mom, but I could see her eyes glossing over every time the subject came up. I knew this was hurting her more than she let on. Finally, at a family gathering, mother-in-law crossed the line one too many times. She leaned in, with that overly bright smile, and asked, "Have you guys tried yet? Don't you want to get pregnant before it's too late?" The entire room held its breath. My wife froze, her face pale, and I saw the look of exhaustion in her eyes. That was when I knew I had to say something. With my heart pounding, looking directly at her, I said, "Enough." My voice is firm but controlled. "This is not something you get to decide for us. We're still grieving. We'll have another child when we're ready." The room went silent. My wife was in shock, but I could see a small flicker of relief in her eyes. Mother-in-law, stunned, sat back and didn't say another word for the rest of the night. The tension hung in the air as we left the gathering, but it felt like a weight had been lifted. My wife thanked me for stepping in, but I could tell she was still processing everything. She was grateful, but it wasn't easy for her to confront her mom. In the following days, mother-in-law reached out to apologize, but her message felt hollow, almost like she still didn't fully understand the gravity of the situation. She tried to act like nothing happened, but the damage was done. From that point forward, I made it clear that if she ever tried to bring it up again, I wouldn't hesitate to step in and shut it down. Slowly, the pressure from her started to ease off. She realized I meant business. The resolution wasn't just in setting boundaries, it was in reclaiming control over our own healing process. My wife and I finally found peace in knowing that, for the first time in a long while, we were the ones calling the shots. And if mother-in-law couldn't respect that, we were ready to distance ourselves even further. My girlfriend told me my dreams were unrealistic, and I should just work corporate. My girlfriend and I are both seniors in high school, and so we've been busy talking about future plans like college and work. Instead of the usual college pathway, I told her I wanted to go to a vocational school and learn how to repair cars. I mentioned how I wanted to open my own car repair cafe, where people can relax in a man cave style cafe while I fix up their cars. I always thought it was a great idea for adult men to make new friends while I handled their car problem. I wanted to set it up where there was gaming equipment, gym equipment, and a small bar all in one building. My girlfriend of 5 years wants us to both go to the same state university instead and take on business administration and marketing. She told me that my dream doesn't sound like it would be a very good success compared to working at a large corporation. When I responded by saying that I don't really need a lot of money, she got really pissed off. She told me that if I want to run a successful business, I need a lot of money, and I need to prioritize money. She stated how I wouldn't have anything to fall back on if my business failed. She also asked if I conducted any surveys to see if people even liked my idea in the first place, and ended things by saying how I should really rethink my dream and make it more realistic. Honestly, the things she said have been on my mind for a while now, and I'm starting to really rethink my decision. There are only a few months left for college applications, and my girlfriend helped me submit one for the state university. But also deep down, I feel like vocational school would really be the best pathway for me. Like I can't imagine wearing heavy suits and polos and living the corporate lifestyle happily. My own parents are both in different corporations, and I've seen how distant and quiet they are at home because they're constantly physically and socially drained at the end of the day. I also really love cars, and I love hanging out with my friends. So I figured making a business like this might provide a fun space for other guys who want the same. But now I'm kind of convinced that it might lead to ruin, and as much as I want guidance, my parents are too busy to tell me anything. So now I'm reaching out to get advice from more experienced people who have been in the same situation. When do you know that your dream is the right path to take? How do you know if a dream is realistic or not? Should I go into business school instead? My best intimacy story: I'm banging the daughter and the mom, and the daughter doesn't know. This is absolutely nuts. I can't believe I'm even sharing it. So I met this very sexy girl a while ago. We have been hanging out at her place a lot. She is hot and we basically meet up and bang. Her body is out of this world, like perfectly perky breasts and a booty one can only dream of. Boys, I'm telling you, she is something else. So we have been banging for a while, and not to brag, but our date nights at basically me trying to figure out a new place to cross off our banging list. Last time it was the cinema, before that we took a local bus. That was fun. She had to sit on my lap, but you know you make it work. It's kind of crazy that we haven't gotten caught yet. So I take her for dinner and then I take her home. That's usually how it works. You know the drill. Not too much fuss. She is easy and we vibe. Well, a month ago things took a turn. I had taken her for dinner, we were reasonably tipsy, making out in the Uber and stuff like that. She was wearing a short red dress and heels. Whenever I put my hand on her leg she would move so that my hand accidentally moved up. Oh, her wimp was so good that night. I'm telling you guys, out of this world. It was hot and sweaty, but her aircon doesn't work, so after pounding her until my knees were weak I went to sleep on the couch in the living room. The next morning I woke up trying to breathe. Yeah, you can guess why. Best breakfast ever. That's her signature move to say goodbye before she heads to work. I fell back asleep, but it was still hot, so I guess I must have tossed my blanket off in my sleep. Suddenly I feel a light stoke across my chest and it wanders south. I was still out and maybe a little hungover from the night before, so I kept my eyes closed and enjoyed it. She is a fun little one. It didn't take long until I was ready to go, so I opened my eyes to grab her and do our thing. Did I get a surprise? It was not my sweet little bombshell, but rather someone a little older. I could not put one and one together and obviously freaked out. I tried to grab the blanket, but she grabbed it before I had a chance to get it and then said, "Why are you in such a hurry? You seemed to be enjoying it just fine a second ago, and considering you're naked on my couch." Before she finished the sentence it hit me. This gorgeous, clearly horny, woman was the mom. Well, I can tell you it was obvious where her daughter got her looks from. Probably her personality too. I don't know how, but we ended up banging. And every time I stay over and the daughter goes to work it takes her mom 15 minutes to show up. I don't know if I should be excited or scared. I do feel a little bad for the daughter. She has no clue, but I just can't help myself. Her mom is a total MILF and I find it kind of hot that she just takes whatever she wants. I want to think I'm getting the best of two worlds, but I wonder how long we can get away with this.
My snobbish sister mocked me for being poor at her engagement party, so I ruined her wedding with one secret. Chloe's engagement party wasn't just a celebration, it was her latest stage to show off how perfect her life was. The event was dripping in wealth, champagne towers, an ice sculpture shaped like their initials, and a designer gown that probably cost more than my yearly salary. Standing in my thrifted dress, I felt like the black sheep among her crowd of shiny, polished elites. Chloe wasted no time reminding me of my place. From the moment I walked in, her passive-aggressive comments began. She loudly greeted me, making sure everyone turned to stare. Her first comment? Something about how proud she was of me for scraping together enough gas money to make it. Laughter rippled through her clique, and I swallowed my embarrassment. All night, she kept finding ways to remind everyone of the gap between us. When her fiancé Ethan praised the decor, she smirked and commented on how lucky she was to have a partner who could afford elegance. I clenched my teeth and tried to focus on the celebration, but it got more challenging with each jab. The final straw came when I overheard her whispering to a group about how sad it was that I'd shown up looking like I'd come straight from a clearance rack. By the time I left, humiliation had given way to anger. I replayed her cruelty, and one thought bubbled. Chloe thought she was untouchable, but she wasn't. Not with the secret I knew. Chloe's fairy tale romance with Ethan had always been carefully constructed. She spun a story about meeting him on a romantic vacation in Greece, but the truth? That vacation was funded by a married sugar daddy she'd been seeing. She dropped him the moment Ethan, with his deep pockets and respectable image, entered the picture. I buried this secret for years, but after that night, I decided it was time for Chloe to face some consequences. I anonymously messaged Ethan the next day, dropping just enough breadcrumbs to make him curious, a few names, dates, and some hints about Chloe's business trips. Then, I stepped back to watch it unfold. It didn't take long for the fallout to begin. Chloe called me in a panic, her usually smug tone replaced with desperation. Ethan had started asking questions, and her lies were unraveling. She begged me to help her, to somehow smooth things over, but I refused. This wasn't my mess to fix. Ethan didn't just confront her, he dug deeper, uncovering the full extent of her deception. Chloe's carefully curated image fell apart overnight. The wedding was cancelled, and Ethan demanded repayment for the thousands he'd already spent on deposits and arrangements. The humiliation didn't stop there. Word spread quickly through their social circle, and Chloe's friends distanced themselves, not wanting to be associated with her lies. Chloe moved back home with our parents, blaming everyone but herself for the disaster. She tried calling me a few times, not to apologize but to lash out, accusing me of ruining her life. I didn't bother responding. I had no regrets. After years of her cruelty, she deserved to face the consequences of her actions. Meanwhile, my life started looking up. With Chloe out of the picture, family events were less stressful, and I finally felt free to focus on my happiness. A few weeks later, I celebrated my recent promotion by splurging on a brand new car I'd wanted for years. When I posted a picture of it online, the caption said, "Nothing like sweet karma to fuel success." Chloe tried to spin the situation in her favor, but the damage was done. Her dream wedding, relationship, and reputation were all in ruins. As for me, I walked away with my dignity intact and a reminder that sometimes the best revenge is simply letting people destroy themselves. I threatened to unalive myself after my emotional support cat passed away, so my mother Baker acted me. Believe me when I say that my cat meant more to me than the air I breathe. I found Molly as a kitten in the parking lot of Walmart. She was a lively little baby, literally like my human child. We were attached at the hip, would cuddle 24/7, and loved being in each other's company. She always managed to make me laugh, and I never found myself to be sad when she was around. One time, I was laying in bed crying because of my mental illness. Molly came up to me and laid directly next to my face and nuzzled me. Her cream-colored fur soaked up my tears. Instantly, I felt euphoric. Her comfort was always so nice. It's almost as if the universe graced me with her existence because it knew how much I needed her. I suffer from severe depression and anxiety, and I never knew having a companion would help so much. I eventually registered her as an ESA so she could live with me wherever I moved. We were basically inseparable. My mother, on the other hand, was an avid cat hater. She always claimed how mean cats are and they would rather be loved by you instead of loving you. Coming from a woman who has only had dogs her whole life, I found her claims to be unfair. When I told her how much Molly meant to me, she shrugged it off. "It's just another thing for you to stress about," she said. "You don't have the energy to be taking care of a cat." None of it was true. She never seems to understand, even though I've consistently told her otherwise. When I broke the news to her that I registered Molly as an ESA, she told me that it's not what I needed. She said that I don't need emotional support and that my mental illnesses are just feelings everyone goes through on a daily basis. She says this despite the fact that I was diagnosed by a shrink who told me I needed help. Somehow she always manages to invalidate everything I stand for, feel, or do, and it was getting very tiring. So, I decided to distance myself from her. About a couple years after I registered Molly as an ESA, she started acting very ill. She lost her desire to eat and drink, would throw up constantly, and most days could barely move. Concerned, I took her to the vet to find out what was going on. They found nothing. Absolutely nothing. After countless scans and tests, Molly was fine. They told me she might have a little cold or ate something she wasn't supposed to, resulting in her lethargy and nausea. They told me to monitor her and come back if she got worse. So, I took their word as truth and took Molly home that night. The next morning I realized that I wasn't awoken by Molly wanting to be fed promptly at 6. Rather, I woke up to the lack of her presence. Instantly I knew something was wrong. I went into the living room calling her name and found her lying on the couch. She looked lifeless. I was in denial about what I could be seeing. I went up to her and started petting her. "Molly?" I said while stroking her, getting more and more frantic the longer she took to respond. It seemed as though she had a stroke or something of the sort. I stopped trying to search for signs of life when I confirmed that she was truly gone. I lost it. I instantly broke down sobbing over her lifeless body. I was hyperventilating, tears and snot all over my face. I had to talk to someone and tell them what had happened, so I decided to call my mom. When she picked up the phone, she could hear my sobbing from the other line. She asked me what was wrong, and it took me a very long time to even tell her. "What's wrong? Are you hurt?" she asked repeatedly. Finally I found a gap between my hyperventilation and told her that I had lost Molly. "You lost her? What do you mean? Did she run away?" she asked. "No mom, no. She's dead." I screamed over the phone. I told her how I took her to the vet yesterday for being sick. My mother was being very sympathetic towards the situation. She knew Molly meant a lot to me regardless of how she felt. "I can't deal with this. I can't. I'm gonna unalive myself." My words hit her like daggers. "No, we don't talk like that. Stop it," she said. I am. I just want to be with Molly. I am." I screamed back, hysterical and heartbroken. Then, against my better judgment, I hung up the phone and left my mother hanging with my threat. For the next half hour, I sobbed and stroked Molly. I didn't want to move, to think, or feel, or breathe. Before I knew it, there was a knock on my door. It was the police, an ambulance, and my mom. They came inside, peeled me off Molly, and took me outside. My mom called 911 after I hung up and told them about my struggles with mental health, my diagnosis from my shrink, and how I threatened to unalive myself because my ESA cat passed away. All of which seemed like a good enough reason to Baker act me, I guess. So, here I am. My mom had Molly cremated and gave me the ashes while in the psychiatric hospital. She had them put in an urn shaped like a cat. The ceramic collar read Molly. "I don't want it. My best friend is dead. I feel like crap, and I'm in a mental hospital. I just wanted to be left alone for good."